Good evening and welcome back to 31 Horror Nights. It's October 16th and tonight's movie is The Mist. Because of Horror Nights, I've seen my fair share of Stephen King adaptations. The Shining, Misery, It, and they've all been pretty good. However, The Mist is actually the first adaptation I'm going into, at least for Horror Nights, where I have not read the book it's based on beforehand. It's basically like Dawn of the Dead. Instead of a mall, it's a grocery store, and instead of zombies, it's white mist and something in it that kills people. By the way, I'm pretty sure that the chief from Brooklyn Nine-Nine is in this movie. Didn't really recognize anybody else, though. I saw one of my least favorite Stephen King cliches in the trailer, the psychotic Christian. Some lady thinks that the Bible wants her to sacrifice someone to the mist. Some random lady calling Tippi Hedren a bird witch makes more sense than that. One of Stephen King's biggest draws is how readable his books are. He's very good with prose, but that does not translate to making a movie. Other directors have made it work, though. I'm gonna go watch The Mist and tell you what I think. Oh boy. I absolutely loathed this movie. I hated it so much, I'm gonna do something I have never done before. For me, The Mist gets a 1 out of 10. Is it actually worse than Frankenstein's Army, The Kill List, and Killing of Sacred Deer? Perhaps not, but hey, this is my show. This is a movie that started out not very good and just kept getting worse, culminating with an absolutely horrendous ending. This might not be the worst movie I've ever seen for Horror Nights, but it certainly is the one that ticks me off the most. They put everything that I hate in this movie. A lot of the characters in this movie are absolutely reprehensible, and any characters that didn't seem horrible, they made sure to kill off. The effects are comically terrible. They are so bad that they detract from the movie. I can't be afraid of something I know for a fact is not there. The threats in this movie, a lot of them felt about as real as the birds from Birdemic. The only times the monsters in this movie looked passable is very rarely when they did practical effects, which is almost never, or when they were shrouded in the mist, obscuring them from view. The pacing is awful in this film. I said in yesterday's review about the birds that they spent almost half the movie just establishing the setting and the location and the characters, and this one it's like 15 minutes. The rest of the 2-hour movie is just a bunch of jackasses yelling at each other in a grocery store while CGI monsters kill them occasionally. A lot of the acting and the editing and the cinematography is just awkward. Like, I don't know what they were trying to accomplish. The main character, David, his acting is okay at best, and a lot of times he just seems very wooden. And that one hyper-religious lady is even worse than I was expecting her to be. This definitely bothers me more than it bothers the average person, but I can't stand it when movies put characters like these in. If they pushed a Jewish or Muslim character to this extreme, nobody would put up with it. I was hoping that it was just going to be like a mob psychology type of thing, but no, it reveals itself to be very political in tone. This seems a little ridiculous even for Stephen King. I don't know if the screenwriter, who's also the director, made it worse, but either way, I despise this character and this plot contrivance that she causes. And the ending, I can't go into detail yet because we're not doing spoilers, but the ending might as well have been a giant middle finger. Was there any good in this movie? I mean, yeah, there were a couple characters that were okay, a couple moments of tension that were done decently, a couple visuals of gigantic monsters in the fog that were okay, but it doesn't even come close to making up for how horrible everything else is. Clearly, I'm in the minority here, but this movie got on my nerves in a way that a movie hasn't in a very long time. I just felt numb after Frankenstein's Army. This just made me rage. I cannot possibly recommend watching this movie less. So, from my perspective, it doesn't really matter if I spoil it, but I am going to start the spoiler section of the review right now. Especially considering what the effects ended up looking like, but just from like a overall perspective, I thought that they were going to show the monsters as little as possible. Not knowing what out there is killing people and how is a lot scarier than what we ended up seeing. There is no rhyme or reason to the character designs for these monsters. You got these giant Cthulhu tentacle things, you got these pterodactyl looking monsters, you got several different types of giant bug, and they all look just awful. And the first actual monster attack that we really see was when several people at the grocery store were trying to open like the shipping door in the back. It's like a garage door that rolls up. And this one guy, he volunteers to go outside because he doesn't believe David when he said he heard like weird loud noises from outside. And he gets like attacked by a bunch of tentacles, which look awful. I can't stress enough how terrible the effects in this movie are. But he and everyone else in the room are getting attacked by these giant tentacles for like 2 minutes, and it's not until well after the tentacles have ample opportunity to kill them that they think to close the door. I also want to briefly go back to the religious zealot lady. I understand that the movie is not trying to say this is what all Christians or God-believing people are. I get it, but I've read enough Stephen King to know what he actually thinks about religion. If they wanted to create division amongst the people in the grocery store, they had so many other routes to go down. It was a choice to make the most evil person in the movie a fundamentalist Christian. And then we get to the ending. By the time that they actually manage to get to the car and drive away, there are only 5 characters left. You got David, this woman, David's son, and 2 old people in the back. They drive through a bunch of shots, and the most pretentious sounding music ever plays while they do that. It's like that weird pseudo-tribal artistic singing with a pipe organ. They drive through some admittedly not bad visuals of the monsters walking around in the mist until they run out of gas, and literally the first thing that he does once he lets that sink in is that he gets a gun. I can understand the hopelessness of this situation, but the fact that they did it that quickly is insane. Even worse, the kid was asleep and the dad shoots him right as he wakes up, as well as everyone else in the car. By the way, they lost the gun on their trip to the car and the attack, and it ends up on the hood. And despite another character repeatedly telling him that it's not worth it, just start the car and drive away, he opens the door and then tries to reach for the gun, which he does in the stupidest way possible, trying to reach forward instead of just getting out of the car really quick and grabbing it and getting back in. That was another pointless moment of tension that only existed because the characters don't have common sense. And I was thinking, okay, maybe that gun will come in handy later. No, it actually came in anti-handy later because it made the movie worse. Literally 30 seconds after he shoots everyone else in the car, including the little boy, help finally arrives in the form of the military and the mist clears up and he screams because he just killed all those people for no reason. I would have preferred if after that, he went out, got eaten by a monster, and the movie just ended. I'm getting too angry. I need to stop. I absolutely, just thoroughly despised The Mist. And I thought that Frankenstein's Army was the worst it was going to get this year, but at least that movie had good effects. And I will be so happy to see you tomorrow to talk about a movie that isn't The Mist.